Hello everybody and welcome back to another Redrawing My Childhood Characters featuring your suggestions. I've received so many really amazing suggestions since my last redraw video came out. Unfortunately, I was a little excited to get working on the next, so I rolled for characters and traits even before I ever posted the last redraw video. So you unfortunately won't be able to see any of the newer suggestions when I spin the wheel. As you might have heard in my last video, I ended up getting sick instead of getting work done ahead of time like I planned. Funny how that happens. So that actually meant that I had time to put the prompts back in and re-roll with new prompt suggestions, but I decided I had to stay true, I have to stay honest. So again, sorry if you don't see your suggestions in this run of things. I promise they'll be there next time, but without any more delays. For our 3 randomly rolled prompts, we have the character Mirak with the Hyperpop aesthetic and horns. And yes, I said Hyperpop, so here is your EYESTRAIN warning in advance. I was actually so stunned when I rolled Mirak, which I'm not sure why I was shocked. I knew I was eventually going to have to draw a man or a masculine character in general, but can you believe the wheel's audacity to roll me an out of my comfort zone character as if that wasn't the entire intention of this random generation character prompt thing anyways? So while you watch me try and use all my brain cells and every Pinterest reference to do some body construction, let's talk about Mirak. Mirak Beta is named after a star found again in Ursa Major, just like Megrez. He is on the opposite corner of the ladle from her. From my okay-ish memory of these characters, I don't think that being part of the same constellation had any bearing on whether or not characters were related to each other. In fact, of the 14 constellation characters, only 2 of them for sure are siblings, and the rest of them kind of just exist, which is possibly concerning for the child who is clearly 5 years old without any parents or siblings to take care of them. But let's turn our focus back on Mirak for now, who is the most normal high school looking teenager boy you have ever seen. He has a belt. Congratulations, he accessorized. Yeah, no, there's not much here in terms of creative inspiration guidelines, so we'll just be throwing any resemblance to the original drawing out the window. I did make an attempt to turn to the skies for any potential answers and inspiration, but in terms of star information, besides being part of the Big Dipper or the Bear, the most interesting fact I found about the star itself is that it's considered a chemically peculiar star with an overabundance of specific metallic elements, and the second most interesting fact about it is that it has a luminosity that is about 68 times as much as our sun. Visually though, in terms of art, yet again we're kind of left without any additional prompts besides maybe the fact that he's blindingly bright to look at. That being said, blindingly bright to look at does kind of segue nicely into talking about the Hyperpop aesthetic, which to be honest was kind of a couple of different things depending on where exactly you were looking. So Hyperpop is a music genre that combines EDM and pop. It's supposed to be very surreal, bubbly, very cute. In terms of fashion, we're looking at very Y2K shapes with neon colors being a staple, lots of sparkles, lots of glossy clothing, brightly dyed hair, and also there's a big thing about stickers that include company logos and labels. I will say that I personally decided not to include any logos because the idea of meticulously replicating company symbols instead of just drawing little hearts and stars made me want to jump out a window. But I did see some really cool character designs online that had a lot of these label stickers on their characters. Now, music, vibes, clothing, all that aside, Hyperpop is also an art style where you're drawing with very bright colors, and instead of using variations in saturation to create different value levels, you're assigning values to the most saturated version of your colors instead. So your blues and purples will be some of your darkest values, while your yellows and some of your bright greens will be your lightest. I hope that makes sense, but if it doesn't, there is an artist who goes by Jean or Bad Jean, who is first of all fantastic at this art style, but who has also made a couple of very popular tutorial videos on how to achieve and play around with this specific art style. I'm not being lazy by redirecting you, I'm just very underqualified to be giving a how-to Hyperpop tutorial. Because I already knew the color palette I would be working in, I wanted to make sure I spent a lot more time working on defining the little clothing details. Sometimes you'll notice when I draw, I start with a red line sketch, but sometimes I'll go ahead and put down some chunky colors like I did with Megrez in the last redraw video. When I'm working with those large color chunks, it's usually because I kind of have a general palette in mind, but I'm not sure about the shape language that I want to evoke. And when I'm working from a red line sketch, it's usually because I want to be sure I remember small particular details. And in this case, that would be the little sticker decals and the sort sort of ribbon-y belt situation. Yeah, hey, look at that, some character consistency. He's still accessorizing with a belt. Now I know this outfit maybe doesn't scream fantasy knight in shining armor as much as Megra's outfit did, but there were brain cells put into this, I promise. So I was very much taking a samurai but make it light armor, leather armor approach. So we've got this moto jacket, leather breastplate, armored pauldrons, layered bracers instead of layered bracelets, and big pants because nothing reads as both Y2K and also martial arts like a wide leg comfy pants does. Back to my last video with Megra's and the issue of how to deal with animal companions, there were a couple of comments saying animal companions are cool, but consider this. The characters can transform or wild shape into their animal counterparts. I really like that. Plus a lot of you were saying that my bird with the scene bangs looked like Megra's had transformed into animal form anyways, so I have the power. It could be canon, but also because I'm in this sort of limbo state of indecision and also I have negative energy levels, I didn't draw a dog wolf companion or alter version for Mirak, but like, imagine it. I think a giant wolf with like the horns of a bull that's Lisa Frank colored. Kinda sick. Almost as sick as I've been this last week. Also, yeah, I'm very clearly panicking in the background of this image. Working in the Hyperpop art style was very overwhelming at first, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not used to such saturated colors, and then usually for each distinct article of clothing or piece of fabric or accessory, I have one color picked out and I work from there. But for this, I would have a base color of pink picked out, but then I would be highlighting in a completely different color, and I would shade with a third totally different color. Also, I was going for this unblended, very sketchy coloring method, which I do kind of like to do normally, but I really wanted to heavily emphasize in this drawing in particular because I wanted even the big flat colored areas to have some sort of texture and to feel very busy and very full. It was a little more pushing of myself than I was hoping to do this week while recovering, and even though I was pushing myself, I still don't think I saturated all of the colors enough for this to truly qualify as Hyperpop because I am a coward and orange scares me. That being said, I did have a lot of fun just with rainbows all over. Also, it's kind of neat being like, oh, I need a highlight color. Which of these colors is blinding me the most? Let's color pick that one. Also, a couple people brought to my attention this week that this is my 100th video upload on my channel, which is wild to think about. I did know it was getting close, but I definitely thought we were still in the 80s in terms of how many videos I've made. And with everything that's been happening outside of YouTube, with being sick and having to pack and move, I didn't even think of preparing something different for the 100th video, so obviously this video isn't necessarily a spectacular special or anything like that, but I do always enjoy an opportunity to reflect on how far we've come. 100 videos, thousands of people who have watched them, and over 1,000 people who have decided to stick around and watch my channel continue to grow and progress. I'm really grateful to all of you for making this possible, and trust me, I have lots of ideas, hopefully lots of more journal videos, more sewing videos, plenty of D&D, and of course redraw characters that are just waiting to be made. I'm really excited about what's happening for April, so hopefully that helps you guys look forward to my upcoming videos. Back on the subject of Mirak and how I definitely only ever create practical armor and accessories, even though this is technically a character creation challenge with specific constraints and design elements, there is a lot of freedom in both Hyperpop and also redrawing my childhood characters. A lot of my childhood character quote-unquote redraws look nothing like their original counterparts, and if that's bothering anyone, sorry, but also nobody has said anything, so that's kind of cool. I personally don't feel like I'm doing a disservice to younger me because the concept of doing character design for the sake of just making a fun little character in itself is incredibly true to the spirit of the original designs. I don't know if that makes sense anywhere besides just inside my head, but I guess I just mean that there's freedom and also relief in being able to make a character based off of the prompts I've gotten from the wheel in combination with the vibes the original character design gives off, or the memories that I've associated with the character. And because the foundation of the design is childhood whimsy and impracticality, it puts a lot less pressure on me making sure that the character fits within the realm of realism. For example, Mirak's horns are all bandaged up and which I don't know much about caring for horns, to be honest, so this may or may not be a practical thing, but it was still a decision I made because I wanted to make it, not because of any cultural significance, not because it would provide any kind of protection, purely because I wanted to. Same goes for the stickers and the bell and his little tooth, and in allowing myself to make more fun designs that don't strictly adhere to a certain set of rules of how clothing or characters should look, I get to have a small sliver of a taste of the beautiful lawlessness of childhood art creation, and that's kind of what this series is all about. Alright, now hear me out. I have a little headcanon for this character. I think Mirek himself genuinely enjoys this brightly colored dress with all the little accessories and the rainbows and the wide leg pants, but I'm going to pull back that aforementioned child that has been so far unlinked to any other adult or guardian, and I want to say that Mirek is her legal guardian for one reason or another, and what started as just her putting stickers all over his face and clothing for fun eventually has become a daily part of their getting ready routine, and I for one think that's just incredibly cute. I've talked about my multiply layer trick in the last video. It's duplicating the character layer and then changing the hue and saturation, setting it to multiply, and trying to push the shadows and highlights a little more with that. I didn't use that trick on Mirek. I tried, but I felt like it turned everything really red and turned a lot of my gradients to be more subtle than I wanted for this particular drawing. However, my good art friend Terrapin Arts recommended a plain purple multiply shading layer instead, which worked amazingly. Shading with a purple multiply layer in general is a fantastic digital art tip to keep in the back pocket, so everyone go thank your artist friends for being there for you when you suddenly have art panic in the middle of the week. And in the last minute, I'm going to talk about the background and the process behind that. I really like the pitch black working surface, but I felt like we have a character that's all about being loud and overwhelming to look at. Let's up the eye strain factor even more. Besides, I had a little decorative flourish when working on Megraz's drawing, so I have to do something for Mirek as well. So I created this sort of rectangular block where I messed around with different colors and spotlights and color dodge and drew in a whole bunch of stars and sparkles in a sort of doodled style. It was really fun. I almost didn't include it at all. I almost just decided, you know what, maybe the plain black is fine because this is so overwhelming. But then I reminded myself that overwhelming is kind of the whole idea here, so I stuck with it. And I think it was worth it, especially with the drop white silhouette and the little signature. It gives it a very fun pop star vibe. I am super proud of how this came out. I love the colors, I love the funky gradients, and I think childhood me would really freak out about this. So that's a success in my book. My partner looked over my shoulder while I was drawing this and he was like, wow, that's really good. It's like Star Guardian Yon. So there's my bi-monthly League of Legends character mention for you. But here we are at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm always open to comments and suggestions for more traits and ideas for future videos. I appreciate your patience while I'm doing the single character videos and leaning less heavy on my fantasy D&D content while I've been both recovering and packing my house, preparing to move and things. But I do have some fun things planned for April, so fingers crossed that I manage to balance all of that out. But who knows? Not me.